Let there be light, and there was light. And this is very apt, you know, the sudden light, well, because I want to talk to you about the great Iberian Blackout of 2025. At least I hope that's what it's going to be called, because that will mean there will only have been one great Iberian Blackout in 2025. Yesterday was that day. It's about 24 hours since the lights came back on. By the way, for those out of the loop, what am I talking about? There was a massive blackout in Spain and Portugal, I think parts of France and Germany yesterday. And it lasted until from the mid-morning, the local mid-morning, all the way to the evening in some parts of the country. But all power was completely restored by the following morning, so everything's hunky-dory now. It was rather dramatic at the time. Looking back now, it seems fine. It was just, you know, just a loss of power and internet for a few hours. But at the time, it was a bit more hairy than that. Now, I was actually driving when this happened, which is very fortunate because this is a car channel after all. 11:33 in the morning. Suddenly, the traffic lights conked out. That's nothing unusual. Traffic lights conk out a lot here, at least in this corner of southern Europe, so I didn't think anything of it. Then I noticed that all the traffic lights were conked out. Further along, I noticed that I had no internet, so I knew something was up. And my significant other was with me as well. She had no internet, so it wasn't just a problem with my phone. And we got to where we were going to the gym, and that's when we realized it was general. No one had power. But we weren't sure if it was just a regional thing within our city or within our own portion of the city. And that's when we found out that it was all across Spain and Portugal. Someone had heard on the radio and they told us there. In the brief moment where we had some communications, because the phone didn't work, SMS messaging, texting didn't work, nothing worked, no internet, no nothing. So we were completely in the dark. And in the very few moments, there was a couple of minutes where text messages got through. So we told our kids we're going to pick them up in a moment, etc. But because they can't have lessons when there's no power, which is weird. I only found out yesterday chalk blackboards are a thing of the past. They're gone. Kids all need to have electronic stuff, and you know, everything's electronic. The board isn't chalk. So how do teachers get a student's attention by lobbing a little bit of gypsum at their heads? That's how you know the educational system is doomed. But anyway, as I was saying, in those brief moments where we had some communication, we got a whole bunch of rumours. It was a cyber attack. It was going to be 3 days until we had power restored. And that's when things got very unnerving, I should say. We had no water at home, like no bottles or anything like that, no reserve water. We live high up in an apartment building, as do most of the Portuguese and Spanish population. And you need electricity to drive pumps to, you know, pump water up to your floor. And we had no such thing, so we wouldn't have water at home. And no lift, so if we want to get water, we'd have to carry it all the way up the stairs. We ended up just getting our stuff, our food, cooking it, because we have gas at home, and that worked without electricity, and took it to my in-laws' house, because everything they have to cook is electric. The stove's electric, the hot water's electric, you know, it's heated by electricity. So they had water, we had gas, we cooked, we could wash up their place. I think you get the idea. And most Portuguese people skived off to the beach. As soon as, you know, as I said, we told our kids we're going to go and pick them up from school, and most parents did. We just took them to our in-laws, and I had a lovely afternoon nap. And as I said, because the weather was just absolutely mwah, it was about 27 degrees here up north, 28, so everyone just hit the sand. But again, this is a car channel, and this is where the car, obviously, the concept of a car is brilliant. It's basically a mobile power station. It doesn't matter if it's petrol, diesel or electric, they're marvellous things. So first off, in the afternoon, after I had my nap, we went to the farm where we have our chickens and such, and I took my father-in-law along, and later when I took my kids home, we could all plug into the car and charge our mobile devices, which we could not at home and wouldn't be able to until very late in the evening. And kids, of course, they're absolutely always glued to their smartphones, and even without internet they have stuff they can do, games they can play, etc., and they'll lose their minds if their phone runs out of power. But of course my father-in-law was very happy to charge his phone as well. So there's that, this mobile little power station that generates electricity. Also, The radio worked, unlike radios at home, which need electricity to work. And in the olden days, if you're old enough to remember, like I am, many people had actually battery-powered radios, because at least here in Portugal, they listen to the football on there. But they're a thing of the past. No one has them anymore. So radio only in cars. Even my mother-in-law went to her car to listen to the radio and see if there was any news on the blackout and how it's going to be solved. And that's how we found out. We heard the Prime Minister speak and a guy from the electric company speak, and our fears were allayed, let's say. And of course, it's a functioning form of transport that will take you anywhere, even in a blackout. These are marvelous contraptions. These car things, they are marvelously, brilliantly fantastic, and I love them. Of course, I did hear a bloke at the gym say, haha, EV owners are screwed. And if you're an EV hater, shut up. Don't talk about blackouts, because EV owners actually come out on top. They might not be able to charge their car, but here's the thing, you can't put petrol in either, because the pumps, they work using electricity. And of course, there's something else. You can also charge stuff from your electric vehicle as long as you have power directly. Here you have to actually turn on the car, and it only pumps out 12 volts. So there's that. Honestly, electric vehicles actually have quite an advantage. Also, if there is a prolonged blackout, in theory you can charge your electric vehicle from all sorts of sources: solar, wind. If you've got enough mates riding bikes and turning dynamos around, you can charge your car in theory. And there was also something else. Even if the pumps did work, there was no way to pay for anything, because it's all electronic now, all of it. I'm not talking just about, you know, your plastic debit card, which of course I use all the time, so I was stuffed, but also because any registry, you know, in terms of cash, does that make sense? Cash register, it's all electronic, so they couldn't make anything function. All the supermarkets shut down in the country, as far as I know. Nothing was open, and they barricaded the doors because they were afraid if this blackout, you know, lasted until the wee hours of the morning, there would be looting, and I can be pretty certain that there would be. So it was a bit hairy, but the power came on at about, I don't know, was it 9:30, 10, and there was whooping and hollering and cheering from all the buildings around us, and it was all over and everything was fine. But yeah, we were a bit apprehensive for a few moments, it has to be said. Just to finish, it really does put things into perspective. You see how fragile everything is and how much we depend on a specific bit of technology. In my case, you know, it's the internet, because I couldn't work without it. So basically I had a day off, but it didn't really allay my fears that much. And also these freaking awesome older cars, they're brilliant. If there's one thing that I cannot stand the idea of, is a car that has to be constantly connected to the internet. Now, I've already made a video on how car ownership is going to be absolutely horrendous in a few years. You can click above and watch that video. It's really good. But one thing that I missed was the connectivity, the fact that you probably have to be constantly linked to the internet to do all sorts of things. And I don't just mean over-the-air updates. Subscriptions that you have active, you probably have to like be connected to the internet for the car to verify that you've paid the money. And I can also imagine there will probably be cars that will not start going unless it's connected to the internet and it gets the okay from a server. I don't know if that's already a reality. It wouldn't surprise me if it was. But that's just madness. And the thing is about these wonderful old cars, they will go, it doesn't matter if there is or there isn't internet. I mean, there's one thing that it is connected, it's very 21st century, and that's the sat-nav system, obviously. It's dependent on satellites, of course. But yeah, in all honesty, if that conked out and it didn't work anymore, there are road signs, there are maps, paper maps, etc. I don't need to be connected to the internet for this to work. And even if it doesn't matter. I've got my mobile phone that's connected to the internet, and if that doesn't work, the car will function. So it's sort of weird how dependent we are on this ethereal technology and on electricity. My goodness me. Did even have candles at home. I mean, we've had other blackouts in my life, but none like this at this scale. But anyway, that doesn't matter. So that's a very quick summary of what it was like to be in the Great Iberian Blackout of 2025. If that name catches on, it'll probably bring more traffic to this channel. here's hoping. If you want to get a t-shirt just like mine, and I know you want to because you've probably had your eye on it during the whole video, this lovely French flag made up of 3 Citroen C5s, then head on to the store linked below, or at the end of the video it's also linked in a little square somewhere around here. And also like, please share, please subscribe, please comment. And on screen now are a couple of videos for your joy, pleasure and entertainment. Thanks so much for watching. I bid you all farewell.